welcome to this fired up edition of All Things Cavaliers. I am Joey Schneider. That is the ageless wonder, Kevin Sleds. We are not messing around today. We're getting straight into it. Kevin, Cavs are on a bit of a skid. Not a good one. Not a good skid.
No, you could say that.
It's been a little while since we've recorded last, but lost to the Rockets, beat the Pacers, lost to the Heat, lost to the Timberwolves, lost to the Heat again, beat the Hornets, which we should have done, and then lost to the Hornets the next night, which we should not have done, and that puts us at what? 5-2 in our last 7. I mean, that's
2-5. You mean
2-5? Whatever, doesn't matter. I can't even talk right. I'm angry. Look, I get it. I get it. They're not going to win every game, but some of these games they're not even competitive.
No. Last night was like the final straw for me. I said I was going to come in hot today because there was no excuse for that loss last night. I mean, they just got the thing that pisses me off is they got abused in the paint. Where was Marcus Morris at? The guy who set the tone the other night and gave him the spark by getting thrown out of the game, giving the forearm shove, saying we're not going to have that in the paint. Sitting on the bench last night, no minutes. How can you explain that one?
No, and since he has joined the team, you can tell that there has been, some sort of spark ignited in them, especially at, on the physicality front. And then, like you said, poof, gone. Evan Mobley is back. I don't know if he's on a minutes restriction or not, but he hasn't shown much these last 2 games. And, he gets a pass. He's coming back from injury. But, you've been injured before. You kind of know what you're getting yourself into. And there hasn't been any of that passion that we've seen, even in losses earlier in the season. It's like, they're just not they're not competing at the level that they were earlier in the season. And just a couple episodes ago, I said, you know what? I wasn't scared of any team in the NBA. I'm kind of afraid of every team in the NBA right now. And it could switch just like that, losing to the Rockets that's a hard pill to swallow. And then, twice to the Heat, and where we really weren't competitive against the Timberwolves, and it's
And just imagine if they wouldn't have got off to the hot shooting start last night in that first quarter, they would have lost by 20 plus points.
Well, I think Merrill has been a little off. Obviously he's still shooting a ridiculous percentage, but not what he was earlier. George still shoot. You say he's still off a little bit. It just seems like everybody's off. Everyone on the team is off a little bit. I mean, the only consistency that I kind of see is Jared Allen, and he even had a bit of an off game. I want to say it was a couple of nights ago. It's been weird to watch them because you can see that they're not where they were. And I don't know if as the season drags on, if, we're seeing some tired legs out there, or maybe we're just, or maybe it's just this being injured and then having guys come back and then trying to rotate them back in is affecting their play. I don't want to make excuses because this 2-5 stretch has been rough since our last episode. And it's, I hate doing these episodes where we have to talk about it. I hate having to talk about how disappointed I am, but it's not like we didn't know this was going to happen. We knew that throughout the year. We were riding high when right before the All-Star break, and now it's hurting a little bit. And, it's starting to catch up to them, and I think that right now is showing us how valuable Donovan Mitchell is to the team.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, it's not just a recent pattern I mean, it's since mid-February, since the All-Star break. I think they're 8-12 or 8-13 since the All-Star break, and you see a lot of people, you know, of the mindset that okay, Donovan Mitchell's going to come back and everything's going to be fine again. I don't think that's the case because you look at the way everybody else is playing. I want to put up a quote from JB Bickerstaff after last night's game from the great Cam Justice on Twitter. We were lazy in our rotations. We were lazy in our closeouts. We weren't good defensively. We didn't have the grit we needed to win the game. We didn't bring our best effort tonight. That is not something you should hear on a team in game 72 when you're trying to hang on to the fourth spot now because Orlando's only a game and a half behind you. That's something maybe early on in the season you hear, but you don't want to hear that from a coach about a team with 10 games to go fighting for seeding in a playoff spot.
No, and I mean, and not only that, but it almost just it's to me that still sounds like a cop out. And I hate to say that, but it's still like, okay, we were lazy tonight. We just gotta no. It's been multiple games. It's not one game. It's been multiple games, and the question is, how do you fix it with 10 games left?
Right.
I mean, or 12, sorry, 12 games left. Was it 10 or 12? You said 70.
It's 10.
10. And on top of that, not going back in the Donovan Mitchell thing, he has to come back from injury and get back into the swing of things. You only have 10 games for that. You got to pray Mobley doesn't get hurt again. You got to hope that you're going to be at close to full strength and somewhat cohesive by the time the playoffs roll around, or else it might be another first round exit. And I'm going to be honest, if the Cavs see another first round exit, there's a good chance JB is going to see an exit as well.
Oh, very good chance. And the other thing is, I think part of the reason Mitchell got injured the way he did was because he had to play so many minutes and they were wearing him down just like they did at the end of last season. And is he going to come back off injury? Is he 100% for one? That's my worry. I'm worried that he sees what's going on right now and is like, I got to get back and try to fix this before the playoffs start. Is he going to come back and have to play 40 plus minutes for these final 9-10 games and risk getting injured again? That's my big concern right now.
I mean, like these injuries have really, really decimated this team in the second half. And, hopefully they can figure it out in the next 10 games because that's what they got. I mean, unless they lose 10 games in a row, which I don't believe is going to happen.
No.
They're going to be in the playoffs, but man, I'm worried about whoever they play in the first round, especially if it's the Knicks. I mean, that's
the way things are. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's just that's a team who got decimated by injuries. Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Brunson was out, and yet they found ways to keep on winning. You had DiVincenzo step up, and a bunch of other guys, and I mean, they traded for OG Anunoby, and he's been out for however long, and they keep finding ways to win. And the Cavs have this great bench. They got DG, they got Jared Allen, and yet they're struggling, and I'm not understanding it.
Well, that's the other thing too. All you heard at the trade deadline was, we're deep. We got a deep rotation. We don't want to mess things up. Some of these buyout players that the higher end buyout players that were interested in coming here, and they told them, we'd love to sign you, but we can't guarantee you playing time. I mean, that looks bad right now. Some of those guys definitely could have helped.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
But you mentioned the Knicks, and they're starting to get everybody back now. I think Mitchell Robinson is about to come back. Anunoby's getting close, so they're going to be at full strength going into the playoffs. Originally it was thought that maybe Randall and Mitchell Robinson were out for the season, but it looks like they may have one or both come playoff time.
Yeah, and that's that's a well constructed team. You got to give your hats off to the Knicks for putting that team together. Who would have thought that DiVincenzo would have popped off like he did this year? And I think I always was a big fan of OG Anunoby. He's a guy that can give you 18 to 20 a night, and he's a great defender. Um, he's basically, I think, I want to say he's a little bit taller than Isaac Okoro. I'm not 100% sure. They both may be 6'5". I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
don't think he's as good defensively, but he's way better offensively. Um, but and there's someone else we've given so much praise to, Okoro. He hasn't shown up like he usually, like he kind of was in these games, and like I said, it's not the only person who I somewhat am giving a little bit of leeway to is Jared Allen, and even he had a pretty awful game. I can't remember who was against. I knew it was one of the blowouts, but these games are rough to watch. They're hard to watch. They really are, because how much better they can be, and they haven't been, and now you're wondering, okay, have teams seen the Cavs, have made their adjustments, and is this what we can look forward to going to the playoffs? And have the Cavs not made those same adjustments playing these teams? Or is it
Yeah,
just go ahead.
I was going to say another guy too is Karis LeVert. I mean, here's a guy in the first half of the season looked like he was in line to win the Sixth Man of the Year award, but I mean, he's been so up and down the second half, and there's plenty of games where he's scoring 4 points, 6 points. So he's been a kind of a disappointment off the bench as well. And you mentioned Okoro, even defensively, I've seen him get just blown by a couple times last night. But again, it goes back to what Bickerstaff said. It's an effort thing right now.
Well, even LeVert. I mean, LeVert's had some really good games and some losses, so it's like you can see his level of effort has still been up there. He's another guy that I would give a little bit more leeway to. But like you said, he's up and down. He'll give you 25 one game, and the next game, or 25 for like 2-3 games in a row. Then the next game he scores 6, and you're like, how does that happen? Where's the consistency? But he's been doing a little bit more of everything. Get double doubles with assists or rebounds and getting some good blocks and steals. So he's the one to give a little bit of leeway to as well, him and Allen. But other than that, it's just everyone seems off. Everything seems off, and you got 10 games to figure it out with Mitchell coming back here. I believe he's coming back Friday.
Yeah, his target was Friday against the Sixers. So
right, which is a team that we struggle against. Another team we struggle against, even without Embiid. I mean,
right.
It's a tough pill to swallow. But I know you had something interesting that you showed me right before we came live, and I think that we need to talk about that because that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, let me throw up a quote. ESPN Cleveland posted this. It's a quote from Brian Windhurst about the Cavs starting five and what they're playing right now, and what the thought around the league is they need to do to be successful. So here we go. Based on people I've talked to and what I've watched, 3-1-1, 3 shooters, 1 point guard, 1 center. That's how I believe they have to play. That was Windhurst on the Cavs, how they need to stop using the 2 big lineup. I thought that was pretty interesting because you go back to that stretch when they won 18 to 20 games. Excuse me. Mobley and Garland were obviously out. Mitchell was the facilitator. He was bringing up the ball, running the offense, and you didn't have the 2 traditional bigs. You had Dean Wade out there, who's not really a traditional big. He's more of a stretch 4, stretch 3 he could even be. And you look how successful they were. And since Mobley's come back with him and Allen, it's been a struggle. So, I mean, there may be something to that. I'd hate to say that, they have to move on from Mobley this offseason and maybe, try to bring in another starting wing caliber player. But I think that's what Windhurst is kind of getting at.
This is a good talking point that he said, because there's 2 trains of thoughts here. One is, you're right. What could you get from Mobley? It's a good question. Something I'm kind of interested in myself is, what could you get from Mobley? But do you want to give up on a guy so young who still has so much potential? You can see that his threes improved this year. And how much would it hurt when he turns out to be a superstar on another team? who figures out how to use them. And I think that's where that's where my JB comment comes in, which is he using these guys the right way, or maybe is Windhurst right? Is it point guard, center, and 3 shooters? You look at a team like the Celtics. Everyone can shoot on that team. It doesn't matter how tall their 7'3" center is a shooter. Tatum's a shooter. Brown he can't dribble, but he can shoot. Derek White, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, who's 96, still drilling threes. A team like Milwaukee, look at their bigs. Bobby Portis can shoot threes. Brook Lopez can shoot threes. Obviously they got Dame, they got Giannis. So yeah, I mean, you do look. I mean, you kind of look around the landscape of Bam. The Heat, Bam can shoot threes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if your center necessarily needs to shoot threes, but you definitely need to have. And I think the Cavs have good 3-point shooters. It's just a matter of staying consistent and staying hot, and they just haven't been. So it's kind of like, what do you do about it?
Right. Well, I mean, another first round exit, like you said, JB's probably out the door, and I mean, you really can't run it back with this current roster. Changes have to be made. You mentioned maybe not wanting to give up Mobley's potential, so maybe it's Jared Allen, the guy they move if they decide to go with the one big, and that big is Evan Mobley. But you got to weigh your options. Hey, I'm just saying.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
If they don't want to give up on Mobley, Mobley would probably bring more in a trade, obviously, but I think Jared Allen could get you something nice as well.
I'm not against that, but it depends on what it brings back. I mean, you would need a star. I shouldn't say star, but an all-star caliber player for me to even think that. And it can't be someone that's in their, I want to say they can't be someone that's about 39 years old, has played in the East a couple of times, won a couple of rings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Likes to wear number 23. It would have to be someone who, maybe late 20s or, somewhere around there. I can't even think of anyone off the top of my head, if I'm being honest with you, that I'd be like, I would jump at, like, oh no, that's a perfect fit. No, there's no one that I can think of. And every offseason we keep hearing, and I just want to put this out there. I don't want Jaylen Brown. I like Jaylen Brown. I like him on the Celtics. I don't know if he would be good on the Cavs. I mean, he might. Maybe he is. He would be good next to Donovan Mitchell. But every offseason, that seems to be the guy that gets thrown around in these trade talk scenarios. And I just, it's got to be someone. It's got to be someone else. So
you mentioned being scared to play any team right now.
Mm-hmm.
So with the way they've been playing the second half and of late, I mean, what gives you confidence that they can get past the first round no matter who they play?
Knowing what they were and what they can still be. It's not, teams like I have said almost every episode, teams go through peaks and valleys, and the Cavs are about as bottom of the barrel as it gets right now. But getting Donovan Mitchell back, I think, is going to be a huge confidence boost for every single player on that team. And even a 70% Donovan Mitchell is going to open up opportunities for players who aren't getting open looks like they should. Or maybe he's going to be a voice, in the huddle with the jersey on that is going, that's going to, telling other players, come on, let's go. Let's run. And, let's play some D. Let's get some stops. So I think that there's that opportunity for them to get back on track, but it's just, they've been through the trials and tribulations this year. They know what it takes back to get from injury, and they have 10 games to figure it out before the playoffs start. So, just as I am afraid to play a lot of teams, I also know the Cavs can beat every team as they have. So it's just a matter of can they get back to that form in 10 games? It's going to be tough, but I think they have the, they have the team to do it. They have the guys to do it. They do have a good locker room. They have good chemistry. When they are, when they're hot, they are one of the best teams in the NBA. And when they are not, it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they hit a peak again right before the playoffs hit and they ride that wave all the way to the finals, but it could just be wishful thinking.
Well, we've been saying it wrong. There's actually 9 games left.
I hate you.
And if you look at it, it starts, as we mentioned, home against Philly tomorrow. Hopefully, Donovan returns for that one. Then they're at Denver Sunday.
Oh, that's a easy game. Easy dub.
That starts what's it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 game West Coast trip. They're at Denver, at Utah, at Phoenix, at the Lakers, and at the Clippers on back-to-back nights.
Oh.
So I mean that's going to be tough. And then they come back home for the final
dubs.
3. They finish it up at home against Memphis, Indiana, and again against the Hornets.
Of all those teams, Memphis is the scariest one to me.
I think so.
Well, they seem to really struggle with the easy teams.
Yeah, they do.
We got Wheels here from X saying we need Spider back. Definitely need Spider back. I mean, he's been really the centerpiece of this team. And I think we've seen DG play like DG. Obviously he's also gone through a rough stretch these past 7 games as well. But he's shown that he can play with Donovan, and I'm comfortable with that. And his shots started falling, but Donovan just brings another level of leadership to this team. That like I said, when the chips are down and you need to get back in the game, Donovan Mitchell is the guy that you look to, and that you know what this team still has a shot.
Well, I think the Cavaliers this period with Mitchell out, we're hoping that Garland was going to be that guy who could step up, and be that late game closer. And Carmen and Lambert were talking about it this morning. You watch Garland in those late game, close game situations, he tenses up. It's like he's nervous. He doesn't have that instinct, that killer instinct that that Kyrie used to have when LeBron would miss time. And that's what this team's starting to remind me of is the LeBron-led teams. And when LeBron would go out, it was a struggle that you're too dependent on one person.
How's J.R. Smith? Can we bring him back?
Yeah, I'm sure he could still hit some threes.
I think the most frustrating aspect of watching this, like I said, this last 7-game stretch is that they can win these games, but it's not, with the exception of a couple, they really haven't been competitive. And that's been something that's kind of I've been struggling with watching the games, and I'm really hoping that ends here soon with the return of Donovan Mitchell. And a close loss hurts, but at least it shows you that they're in the game. A lot of these games have been, they're out of it by the end, middle to end of the third quarter, and when that happens, you're just like, okay, well, you know what, what do you do? I would give the young guys some minutes, but Jimmy doesn't want to do that either.
Right.
One more quick question. Even if we get to the second round and then take a second round loss, I still think JB is on the hot seat. Do you?
I do too, because Brian Windhorst, again to bring him up, reported it earlier in the season when they were hovering around 500 before they hit that 18 out of 20 stretch. Windhorst confirmed he was on the hot seat, that the Cavs were getting close to pulling the plug. So that stretch really saved him for this season. So yeah, I think. I mean, as soon as you got Donovan Mitchell, your expectations rose. I mean, you became championship expectations that were put on you, whether it be by in our fans or outside the city of Cleveland. When you acquire a player like that, your expectations are going to go up. So yeah, I think anything less than the conference final appearance this year would be a disappointment to me.
I agree 100%. And we have 9 games left now, as we were wrong earlier, and Kevin broke my heart. We have 9 games left, not 10, to get back on track and hopefully finish out strong. Maybe still get that 3rd seed. Who knows? But rough 7 games that we had to talk about right here. We hate talking. We're not talking bad about any players because we know how hard it is. But man, you could see it on the court. You could see the lack of energy, and hopefully Donovan comes back and brings some of that energy with him, and guys can get some open looks, start seeing some shots drop. And even though they got a really tough schedule coming up, they could pull out some big wins, and we can, get this push for the playoffs. But yeah, Kevin, not a fun episode. Not a fun episode at all.
Let's hope next week's a little better.
We got Vaughn Hill. Oh, me and Kevin
looks like that.
Yeah, we got Vaughn Hill from Facebook. Conference finals is too high of an expectation. I don't know. I think, like we said, if the Cavs are playing their absolute best, like we saw them play before the All-Star break, if they're playing at that level, I do not believe the conference finals is too high of an expectation. They showed during that stretch that they could hang and beat with any single team. But I think that's where they need to get to for JB to keep his job.
I agree.
So, but we're gonna see what the team's made of over the next 4 or 5 games, as they got some tough games. No, you said Nuggets, and tomorrow is the Sixers, and then Nuggets and Clippers and Lakers, and oh my,
yeah, it's tough stretch.
It's gonna be a real tough stretch. But you got anything else, Kev?
No, just want to give a shout out, a little promo for all you gamers. We have a brand new show coming up here in about a half an hour called the Press Start Podcast with Joey Schneider and Dean Samples. So inaugural episode. If you're into gaming, make sure you tune in for that at 8 p.m.
Well, let's hope that the Cavs get back on track. I'm very excited for the Press Start Pod, and I'm Joey Schneider. That's Kevin Sleds, and this is All Things Cavaliers.